What's up, team? Welcome to week 12, scale fluctuations. Today we're going to be talking about why you shouldn't freak out if the scale is higher one morning or even a couple mornings in a row or even a week, and why the scale actually fluctuates so that you can put some evidence behind what the heck is going on with that stupid little number and put the anger aside and stay focused on your goals. All right, so everybody knows this feeling. You wake up, you're feeling good. You've been on your protocols, you've been crushing it. You strip off all your clothes, you go to the bathroom, you step on the scale, and it's up by 2 pounds. What the heck is wrong with me? And you're thinking, oh my God, the protocols are wrong. Am I eating too much? Did I not do enough? Is something wrong with my body? Is something wrong with my hormones? Is my coach lying to me? There's no way I'm gonna reach my goals at this point. And all in all, just feeling total betrayal when you put in the work, you step on the scale, and it tells you the exact opposite of what you want to see. It sucks. It really does. And I've definitely been there, and I've definitely been somebody who has let what I've seen on the scale dictate what kind of day I was going to have, whether that was my energy and my attitude or actually my behavior. And at some points in my life, I would let a high weigh-in on the scale dictate the fact that I went off my diet, said screw it, ate until I felt sick, because that was a time where I didn't know what I know now. And so what I want to do with this video is really just impart on you all of the reasons why you don't need to do that and why you're probably actually still plenty on track. It is normal to see scale fluctuations. It's normal to see that weight loss is not linear. And unfortunately, you're going to see a lot of peaks before you see valleys when it comes to your weight loss graph and charts. When women are losing weight, it is the least linear thing I have ever seen in my entire life. And the crappy part is that a lot of our ladies are married, in serious relationships, things like that, where we're with a dude all the time comparing the pace of our weight loss, and the male weight loss graph looks a lot more linear. And this has a lot to do with hormonal fluctuations and how the female body stores water weight and fluctuates due to hormones compared to the male. But that tends to be our only frame of reference, right? One other person versus ours. And we don't have the hundreds and hundreds of reference points that your coach has. And so it's really important that you lean on this information right here, because what I'm telling you is what we see every single day, every single week in check-ins, and that you need to come back to this video, remind yourself when you're feeling really down about the scale fluctuating up. So why does the scale fluctuate? We look at the scale fluctuating and we think, I gained weight, I gained body fat. But the reality is 95 to 99% of the time, it's not body fat, it is water. Our body's water fluctuates drastically on a day by day and even hour by hour basis. For example, it makes a lot of logical sense that if I was sitting here and then I stood up and weighed myself, sat back down, and I drank 16 ounces of water out of my Stanley, then I stepped back on the scale again and weighed myself, we'd expect for that to change, right? So why do we expect the scale to be stagnant every single morning when every single day we're eating different foods, we're moving in different ways, we're doing different things? Here's a number of reasons why our body weight fluctuates due to water. So it can fluctuate due to water weight changes based on the time that we go to bed and the time that we wake up, because when we're sleeping, we're going through a full fast, right? No food, no water. So the longer that we sleep, the more dehydrated we become. Typically, the lighter we become, the longer we sleep. And so when we do wake up earlier, we might notice that we weigh in higher than when we sleep in on the weekends and weigh in lower. We can also see our weight fluctuate when we are not having regular digestion. If you've ever been constipated, you know that you feel it in your stomach, but what you probably also don't realize is that it can pile up on the scale because it's literally waste that we have not gotten rid of yet in our body. Sodium is another one. If you've ever noticed a difference between the scale weight on a night that you have Chinese takeout versus a night that you cook your own meal with your own seasonings, you'll probably notice that the scale weighs in higher the morning after a high sodium meal like Chinese takeout. That doesn't mean to avoid that, but it means to expect that you're probably going to need to hydrate more on those days before and after, and that you might see a bit of a scale spike depending on the portion that you eat. The scale will also change based on the actual amount of food that you eat. If you are eating higher amounts of food, whether that's because you overate or because you're actually eating more calories than you used to, then sometimes the scale will go up because you're actually consuming more food volume that is processing through your system. You can also see the scale fluctuate due to alcohol. This one's a little bit more unpredictable. Typically, alcohol is a dehydrating substance, but it can also cause inflammation. And so for some people, drinking alcohol makes them gain weight on the scale the next morning, and for others, actually makes them lose weight on the scale the next morning. In addition, when we drink alcohol, our judgment is impaired. We tend to eat more food late at night. That can also, of course, impact the scale weight. Another big one is our hormones. Whether we like it or not, as a female, if you have a regular menstrual cycle, you will notice that your weight will spike up roughly, probably about a percentage of your body weight on average, the week of your PMS and the week of your actual cycle. Shedding your uterine lining takes a lot of work and a lot of energy and causes a lot of internal inflammation in your body. So your weight will fluctuate from the bloating and all of that. In addition, if you have digestive sensitivity, say you're gluten sensitive, dairy sensitive, something like that, and you eat those foods, this is going to cause inflammation of the gut, of the digestive system. And when we have that, it retains water in our system that will show up as weight on the scale. A lot of times, inflammation from digestive issues can mask a lot of weight loss or progress that we're making. In addition, your body can also have inflammation build up from training. So if it is your first week on a new strength training program and you get really, really sore, that soreness, we also tend to feel a little puffy when we're feeling really sore. That is water retention too. So training really hard, especially the first week or two of a new training plan before your body starts to adapt, can also lead to increases on the scale. In addition, stress on the body. So cognitive stress, work stress, life stress, stress from not getting enough sleep can also cause inflammation. Again, can lead to an increase on the scale as well. In addition, getting sick is stress on the body. So if you get a cold, you get a fever, you can gain or lose weight on the scale due to either dehydration from like sweating it out, or from inflammation. You can gain weight while being sick because your body is inflamed, trying to have an immune response that successfully kicks out the cold. It's a healthy response, but it might show up on the scale. You can also see fluctuations on the scale acutely with medication use and things that make your body literally work differently on the inside. Those ones are a little bit less predictable because it depends on the medication and what it's for, but it's another thing to be aware of. Sunburns. I bet you didn't know that one. When you get a sunburn, your skin is an organ, and when it's trying to heal itself from the damage of a sunburn, it will also become inflamed and will also retain more water. So that can also show up on the scale. Other sneaky ways that your weight on the scale can fluctuate is the time delay between eating and waking up and weighing in. And so we always want to weigh in, strip down, go to the bathroom, whatever we go to the bathroom or not, we weigh in right then and there. We don't do anything else. We don't drink any water. We don't do anything before we weigh in. We weigh in as close to undressed as possible, and we try to get it as consistent as we can. Even with that, there's all these variables, right? But when we, let's say, eat at midnight and we wake up at 6 a.m., the weight on the scale is going to look a lot different than if we ate at 6 p.m. and woke up at 6 a.m. That's a 6-hour difference, right? So that food is literally still sitting in your stomach digesting. It's not fat. You'd have to overeat by 3,500 extra calories to gain an actual pound of body fat. So it's not fat. It's just literal food weight still in your system. Lastly, consistency in your adherence can also make a difference. For example, if you are not adherent whatsoever to your protocols, you can expect that the weight on the scale is going to be a lot more volatile than if you are fairly adherent and consistent with the food sources you choose and the staple meals that you eat on a regular basis. But if your diet's kind of all over the place, you should expect your weight to fluctuate respectively to that. But the more and more you build out your base meals that you rely on, the more and more that you build out your typical food sources that you go to and your typical meal schedule that you follow, the more consistency you have in that, the less you will see the scale fluctuate relative to somebody who doesn't. So then you might ask, all right, There's all these freaking reasons why the scale fluctuates so much. So why am I even doing this? Why am I even weighing in daily if it's just gonna piss me off? But the reality is, when we have those volatile changes in our weight, the most important thing that we don't do is weigh in once per week on a day that may or may not be a good day to weigh in, and consider that our diagnostic for if we're making progress or not. Because what if one week we weigh in and perfect conditions, it's the lowest that we'll weigh in, and another day we weigh in and we're just super bloated and inflamed for whatever reason. We're actually making plenty of progress, but the scale says the opposite. That's a recipe for disaster. And so when we weigh in daily, we are able to take the average of every 7 days and see trends over time. And so that allows us to smooth out the highs and the lows within the fluctuations and look at, on a 7-day by 7-day average, are we seeing the overall averages move down over time? And if there is a week where the average increases versus decreases, if we're looking for weight loss, then, is there a number of factors that contributed to that whole week? Or is that something that we see continue as a trend over time that we're gaining and gaining? As your coaches, we're typically looking at the past 2 or 3 or 4 weeks to make decisions on what to do with your protocols, rather than making decisions based on just quick weigh-ins day in and day out alone, or just the prior 7 days, because it's not a truly reliable snapshot of what's really going on. Because at the end of the day, if your average weight on day 0 was up here and your average weight on day 60 was here, would it really matter to you if the in-between was like this, but you still ended up there and you still made progress? When we're very, very emotional, when we see a number on the scale that we either really like or really dislike, it shows an attachment to the outcome versus the process. So we're getting really attached to the outcome matters more than the habits that I'm putting in on a day-by-day basis. And so what we really want to do here is find neutrality with our emotions with the scale, because it's only telling us part of the picture, and it's really important that we do stay focused on the fact that we're consistent with all of our habits, because that is what will lead to the most progress in the long run, including the weight on the scale. So for example, if you see a number on the scale that you really don't like, what I want you to practice is something that we practiced in the self-talk module, which is going from negative to neutral, because you might notice all of those thoughts, those negative thoughts come up of, I'm not making enough progress, I gotta shift the plan, we gotta do something, I have to make this work, and a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves, when we could really just look at the number and say, it is what it is today, I'm gonna plug it in, I'm gonna let my coach handle it, because I'm gonna trust that they are going to make changes for me when they are needed, and they are going to tell me if this weigh-in is actually out of line, or if it's just a fluctuation that I don't need to be worried about. So submitting to the process, allowing the fluctuations to be what they are, because they will happen, expecting that they will happen, and acknowledging that your coach has your back. We're not here to sabotage you. We want you to make progress, and we will make changes when it's necessary. This will also help you in the long run too, because if we are getting really attached to the outcome of the scale going down, what does that really do for us in the long run? After we lose the weight, we have to ditch that mentality anyways, because then our goal is weight maintenance. Then our goal shifts. And so we really have to detach from a certain way of thinking about down is good, up is bad, fluctuations are bad, because that's just not the rest of our life. This weight loss phase that we're in is temporary. It's not something that we're actually going to be doing for the rest of our lives. And so we have to be able to discard from the outcome focused mentality and focus on the process of what are the habits that are actually getting me there, and can I celebrate those and tie my excitement to how well I do with those instead. So just remember, we're looking at the scale as data. We're weighing in regularly so we can make data-driven decisions. The scale will fluctuate, and let's expect it to, based on all of those factors, and we're looking for big picture averages to change over time. And just remember to take the other measures of progress seriously too. Your measurements, your body photos, your non-scale victories, these are really important to stay grounded in the fact that you might be making progress, even if the scale isn't showing it just yet. So that's all on scale fluctuations. Hope you enjoyed it and found it very valuable and useful. Come back to this module as often as you need, because you might need to through this journey, as the scale can be a very triggering tool for some. And let your coach know any of these practices that were really helpful and resonated with you. See you in the next one.